The ink on the marriage contract felt like it was burning through my purse as I walked down the marble steps of the courthouse. 3 years. 3 years of this cold, empty arrangement, and I was finally going to end it. My hands trembled as I gripped the railing, the metal cool beneath my sweaty palm. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city streets, but I felt no warmth from it, only the chill that had settled into my bones the day I signed my life away to a man I barely knew, a man whose very name made hardened criminals whisper prayers. I should have been relieved. The papers were filed. In 6 months, I'd be free of Alessandro Vittorio De Luca. But freedom felt more like falling, the scent of exhaust and street vendor food mixed with the expensive perfume of passing businesswomen. I pulled my threadbare coat tighter, suddenly aware of how much I didn't belong in this part of the city anymore. When I married Alessandro, I'd been thrust into a world of silk and champagne, but I'd never truly inhabited it. I was a sparrow in a cage of gold, pretty to look at but ultimately disposable. My phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Mrs. De Luca. His voice was velvet over steel when I finally answered, each syllable precisely measured. Where are you? Out. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Even now, even over the phone, Alessandro commanded the space around me. That's not an answer. A pause, and I could hear him moving, the rustle of expensive fabric, the click of his leather shoes on hardwood. Marco says you left the penthouse 3 hours ago. You haven't been shopping. You haven't been to the gallery. So, I'll ask again, where are you? Of course he'd had me followed. I'd been naive to think otherwise. I had errands. Man, the lie tasted bitter. Errands. He repeated the word like he was examining it, turning it over to find the deception hidden inside. What kind of errands require you to visit a divorce attorney, Tesoro? My heart stopped. The street noise faded to a dull roar in my ears. How did you really think I wouldn't know? His voice dropped lower, and I could picture him now, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, one hand in his pocket, his dark eyes fixed on some distant point, as he calculated his next move. Did you think you could just walk away from me? It's just a contract, Alessandro. I forced strength into my voice I didn't feel. A business arrangement. You said so yourself. I say a lot of things. The sound of a door closing, the change in acoustics telling me he'd gone somewhere private. Come home, Arya. Now. I can't keep doing this. The words burst out before I could stop them. I can't keep pretending that this is a real marriage when I what? His voice was dangerously soft now. When I give you everything you could possibly need? When I protect you from a world that would chew you up and spit you out? When I make sure no man even looks at you wrong? That's exactly the problem. A woman passing by gave me a strange look, and I lowered my voice. You treat me like a possession, not a person. I'm suffocating. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Where are you? He asked again, and this time there was something new in his tone, something that made my skin prickle with awareness. It doesn't matter. I'll be home later. Arya. My name was a command. Tell me where you are, or I will find you myself, and you won't like the scene I make when I do. I closed my eyes, defeated. 5th and Main, near the fountain. Don't move. The line went dead. I should have run. Should have gotten on a bus, a train, disappeared into the crowds of the city like I'd planned. But my feet stayed rooted to the concrete, because somewhere deep inside, past the fear and frustration, was the truth I'd been avoiding for 3 years. I wanted him to come for me. The black SUV appeared 15 minutes later, cutting through traffic with the kind of aggressive precision that made other drivers swerve out of its path. It pulled up to the curb in front of me, and I watched my own reflection in the tinted windows, pale, thin, looking younger than my 26 years in my discount store coat and worn boots. The back door opened. Alessandro didn't get out. He never did. The world came to him. Get in. His voice carried from the dark interior of the vehicle. I hesitated, fingers tightening on my purse. The divorce papers were in there, proof of my rebellion, my desperate bid for independence. Arya. Warning and promise wrapped in 2 syllables. I got in. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded like a prison cell locking. The interior smelled of leather and his cologne. Something dark and expensive that I'd never been able to name, but that haunted my dreams. The privacy screen between us and the driver was already up. Alessandro sat in the far corner, one ankle crossed over his knee, his suit jacket unbuttoned to reveal a crisp white shirt and a tie that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass, but it was his eyes that always undid me. Brown so deep they were nearly black, always watching, always calculating. "Show me," he said quietly. "What?" "The papers. Show them to me." My hands shook as I pulled the envelope from my purse. He took it with steady fingers, our skin brushing for just a moment. That simple touch sent electricity racing up my arm, and I hated myself for it. He opened the envelope with deliberate slowness, pulling out the divorce petition. His expression didn't change as he read, but I saw the muscle tick in his jaw, saw the way his fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on the paper. Irreconcilable differences. He looked up at me. "Creative. It's the truth. The truth." He set the papers aside, his full attention now fixed on me in a way that made me feel pinned, examined. "You want the truth, Tesoro? The truth is that you're mine. You signed yourself over to me 3 years ago, and that signature meant something. It meant I was desperate." The words exploded out of me. "My father owed you money he couldn't pay, and you offered me a deal. Marriage in exchange for his debt, a business transaction. That's all it was supposed to be. Supposed to be." He leaned forward, closing the distance between us. "And what is it now?" I couldn't answer. Couldn't tell him that somewhere along the way, the lines had blurred. That I'd started to confuse his possessiveness for caring, his jealousy for passion, that I'd committed the ultimate sin. I'd started to feel something real in this arrangement built on coercion and convenience. "You don't love me," I said instead. "You don't even know me. I know you." His voice was soft, but there was steel underneath. "I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and no cream. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous. I know you avoid the east wing of the penthouse because the art there reminds you of your mother. I know you read romance novels on your tablet late at night and cry at the endings." Heat flooded my cheeks. "That doesn't mean. I know you filed those papers today because yesterday you saw me with Vittoria Castellano at the charity gala." His eyes never left mine. "I know you think she's my mistress. Isn't she?" The question came out more bitter than I intended. "She's a business associate. Her family controls the ports. We were discussing shipping routes." He reached out, and I flinched, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're jealous." "I'm not. You are." His thumb brushed my cheek, and I find that very interesting, considering you're the one trying to leave. "Don't do that." I pulled away from his touch, even though every cell in my body screamed to lean into it. "Don't twist this around. You keep me locked in that penthouse like a prisoner. You have men follow me everywhere. You control every aspect of my life. That's not a marriage, Alessandro. It's a prison sentence. I protect you." "From what?" "I had a life before you. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine." "A life?" His voice turned harsh. "You were working 3 jobs to pay off your father's gambling debts. You lived in a studio apartment with broken heating. You ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. That's the life you're so eager to return to?" At least it was honest. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. At least I wasn't some man's property. The word hung between us like a blade. Alessandro's expression went cold in a way that would have terrified anyone else. I'd seen men twice my size go pale when he looked at them like that. But I'd also seen him gentle a frightened horse, watched him sit vigil at an old man's deathbed, observed the way he commanded loyalty not just through fear, but through a twisted kind of honor. "Property," he repeated softly. "Is that what you think you are to me? What else would you call it?" He studied me for a long moment, then pressed a button on the door panel. "Take us home, Marco. The long way." The SUV pulled back into traffic, and Alessandro reached for a decanter of amber liquid I hadn't noticed before. He poured himself 2 fingers of what was probably whiskey older than me, and took a slow sip. "3 years ago," he began. his voice taking on the tone he used when he was about to tell me something important. Your father came to me with a proposition. He had information I needed. Names, locations, account numbers. In exchange, he wanted his debts forgiven. I'd heard this story before, but something in his tone made me listen differently now. I could have taken the information by force. Should have. But he had a daughter. Alessandro looked at me over the rim of his glass. He showed me your picture, said you were studying art history, working multiple jobs to support yourself because he'd gambled away your college fund. Said you deserved better than to inherit his mistakes. My throat tightened. I agreed to forgive his debts on one condition. You would marry me. He thought I wanted a trophy wife, someone young and pretty to parade at events. Maybe that's what I let him think. He set down his glass. But the truth is, I saw something in that photograph. Something soft in a world that had beaten the softness out of me a long time ago. Alessandro, I'm not finished. His eyes held mine. You walked into my office for our first meeting wearing a dress from a thrift store and shoes with worn heels, but you held your head high. You looked me in the eye. You negotiated terms, insisted on a prenuptial agreement that protected your assets, demanded a separate bedroom, required that I never interfere with your education. Do you remember what I said? I did. I'd never forgotten. You said yes to everything, because I realized in that moment that you weren't soft. You were steel wrapped in silk, and I wanted you more than I'd wanted anything in my entire life. He leaned forward again, and this time when he touched me, his fingers curling around my wrist. I didn't pull away. So, yes, Tesoro, I'm possessive. I'm jealous. I keep you close because the idea of you out in the world, vulnerable, unprotected, makes me lose my mind. But you are not my property. You're my obsession. The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. That's not love, I whispered. No, he agreed. It's not. It's something much more dangerous. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor changed. The mask of the businessman slipped, replaced by something colder, more lethal. Stay in the car, he ordered, already pressing the intercom. Marco, situation? The driver's voice came through, tense. 3 vehicles, boss. They've been on us since 7th Avenue. Alessandro's hand moved to the small of his back, and I realized with a jolt that he was armed. He was always armed. Aria. His voice was calm, but his eyes were ice. I need you to get on the floor. Now. What's happening now? The SUV suddenly accelerated, throwing me forward. Alessandro caught me, his body covering mine as he pushed me down into the footwell. My heart hammered against my ribs as the sound of squealing tires and angry horns filled the air. Hold on to me, he commanded, one arm wrapped around my shoulders, his other hand still on his weapon. Don't let go. A loud bang echoed through the car, a gunshot, and the rear window spiderwebbed, but didn't shatter. Bulletproof glass. Of course it was bulletproof glass. They're boxed us in, boss, Marco shouted. Alessandro cursed in Italian, words I'd only heard him use once before, and pressed something on his phone. Luca, I need cleanup on Riverside. 3 hostels. Now. Another shot, then another. And pressed against Alessandro's chest, breathing in his cologne mixed with the acrid smell of my own fear, I realized that my divorce papers, my carefully crafted escape plan, meant nothing. Because someone was trying to kill us, and the man I'd been trying to leave might be the only thing keeping me alive. The SUV swerved violently, throwing me against Alessandro's chest. His arm tightened around me, holding me in place as Marco cursed and accelerated through what sounded like a red light. Horns blared. More gunshots cracked through the air, but they sounded distant now, fading. Status! Alessandro barked into his phone, his voice steady despite the chaos. 2 minutes out, boss, a voice responded. Hold position at the warehouse district. Copy. He ended the call and looked down at me, his hand cupping the back of my head. Are you hurt? I shook my head, unable to form words. My entire body trembled, adrenaline making my teeth chatter. This was his world. The world I'd been shielded from behind the walls of the penthouse, behind the guards and the tinted windows, and the carefully constructed illusion of normalcy. "Breathe, Tesoro." His thumb traced circles against my scalp, and surprisingly gentle gesture. "In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're safe." Safe. The word was laughable. We'd just been shot at. The SUV made another sharp turn, and I heard the squeal of tires on concrete. We were inside now. The echo of the engine told me we'd entered some kind of enclosed space. A warehouse, like the voice had said. "Clear," Marco announced. Alessandro helped me up slowly, his eyes scanning me for injuries I didn't have. My coat had ridden up, my hair had fallen from its clip, and I could feel the beginning of what would probably be a bruise on my shoulder from where I'd hit the door panel. "Let me see." His fingers were already pushing aside my coat, examining the tender spot. "I'm fine," I managed, finally finding my voice. "What the hell was that?" "Enemies." He said it like that explained everything. Like being chased and shot at was just another Tuesday in his world. "Marco, call Dr. Russo. Tell him to meet us at the safe house." "I don't need a doctor. You're going to be examined anyway." Alessandro's tone left no room for argument. He opened his door, stepping out first, his body still positioned between me and any potential threat. "Come." The warehouse was massive, filled with wooden crates and the smell of motor oil and something else, something metallic I didn't want to identify. 3 more vehicles were already there, and men in dark suits emerged from them like shadows solidifying. They all moved with the same predatory grace, the same alert awareness. One of them approached, older than the others, with silver at his temples and a scar running down his left cheek. "Boss." We eliminated 2 of the vehicles. The third got away, but we have people tracking it. "Good." Alessandro's hand found the small of my back, guiding me toward one of the other SUVs. "I want names by morning, Luca, and I want to know how they knew our route." The implication hung heavy in the air. Someone had told them. Someone inside. On it. Luca's eyes flicked to me, something unreadable in their depths, before he turned away. Alessandro opened the door of a different vehicle. This one even more reinforced than the last, I noticed. The interior was similar but somehow more austere, designed for function rather than comfort. He helped me inside, then slid in beside me. "Where are we going?" I asked as the vehicle started moving, flanked by the others in a tight formation. "Somewhere safe." He was texting rapidly on his phone, his jaw tight. "The penthouse is compromised if they knew we'd be on that route." "Compromised." I repeated the word, trying to process everything. "Alessandro, who were those people? Does it matter?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Yes, it matters. Someone just tried to kill us." "Kill me," he corrected, finally meeting my eyes. "You were collateral damage. They didn't know you were in the vehicle." The casual way he said it, like my potential death was just an unfortunate side effect, made something snap inside me. "And that makes it better? That I could have died because I happened to be in the wrong car with you. It makes it my responsibility." His voice hardened. "Which is why you're going to stay exactly where I put you until this is handled." "I want to go home." "You can't." "Then I want to go to my father's." "Your father is already at the safe house." Alessandro pocketed his phone, giving me his full attention now. "I sent men to collect him the moment the shooting started. He's being protected." Of course he was. Alessandro thought of everything. "How long?" I asked quietly. "As long as it takes." He studied my face, and I wondered what he saw there. "This is what I was protecting you from, Arya. This is why I keep you close. Because the moment you step outside my protection, you become a target, a weakness, something my enemies can use against me. So I'm supposed to what? Live in hiding? Become your prisoner for real now instead of just in theory?" "You were never a prisoner." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining despite my attempt to pull away. "But you need to understand something. The life I lead, the choices I've made, they have consequences. And those consequences don't stop just because you filed divorce papers." The safe house turned out to be a sprawling estate an hour outside the city, surrounded by high walls and enough security to guard a military installation. The vehicle passed through 3 checkpoints before finally pulling up to a modern structure of glass and steel that looked more like an architectural magazine spread than a hideout. My father was waiting in the foyer, his face gray with worry. He rushed forward the moment he saw me, pulling me into a hug that smelled of cigarettes and cheap aftershave. "Thank God," he breathed. "They said there was shooting." "I'm fine, Dad." I hugged him back, suddenly exhausted. "We're both fine. Mr. Torres." Alessandro's voice cut through the reunion, polite but firm. "Maria will show you to your room. I suggest you rest." It wasn't a suggestion. My father pulled back, his eyes moving between Alessandro and me. He looked older than I remembered, more worn down. The gambling had aged him, but so had the guilt. I could see it in the lines around his mouth, the way his shoulders curved inward. "Aria," he started. "Go, Dad." "It's okay." He nodded, following a middle-aged woman in a crisp uniform up the curved staircase. I watched him go, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. "You need to eat," Alessandro said. "When's the last time you had food?" I couldn't remember. This morning? Yesterday? Time had become elastic, stretching and compressing in ways that made no sense. He led me through the house, past rooms filled with expensive furniture and art that probably cost more than most people's homes, to a kitchen that was all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. He pulled out a chair at the island, a wordless command. I sat. Alessandro moved through the kitchen with surprising efficiency, pulling ingredients from the massive refrigerator. He'd rolled up his sleeves at some point, revealing strong forearms marked with faded scars I'd glimpsed before, but never had the courage to ask about. "You cook?" I asked, surprised. "When necessary." He set a pan on the stove, adding olive oil with practiced ease. My mother insisted all her children learn. Said a man who couldn't feed himself was a man who could be controlled. It was more personal information than he'd shared in 3 years of marriage. I watched him work, dicing vegetables, seasoning chicken with what looked like rosemary and thyme. The domesticity of it was jarring against the backdrop of gunfire and violence we'd just escaped. "Tell me about the contract," I said finally. "The real reason you wanted to marry me." His hands stilled for a moment, then resumed their work. "I told you in the car. You told me you were obsessed with me. That's not a reason. It's a symptom." I leaned forward on my elbows. "What did you really want, Alessandro?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, an heir. The word hit me like a physical blow. "What? My family expects it. My position demands it." He plated the food with precise movements, then set it in front of me. "Eat." "I'm not hungry." "Eat, or I'll feed you myself." His eyes met mine. "Don't test me on this, Tesoro. Not tonight." I picked up the fork with shaking hands, taking a bite of chicken I couldn't taste. He watched until I'd swallowed, then poured 2 glasses of wine, red, expensive, breathing in crystal glasses that caught the light. "You never touched me," I said quietly. "In 3 years. We've never—" "I know." "Why?" He took a long drink of wine before answering. "Because you weren't ready. Because you looked at me like I was a monster on our wedding night, and I decided I'd rather have you hate me from a distance than fear me up close." The honesty of it stole my breath. I'd expected manipulation, possessiveness, entitlement. Not this raw admission that he'd been waiting. For what? For me to come to him willingly? The separate bedrooms, I continued, pieces clicking into place. The hands-off approach. That was all. Part of the terms you negotiated, yes. He set down his glass. But also necessary. For both of us. I don't understand. Don't you? He moved around the island, coming to stand beside me. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Smell his cologne mixed with the herbs he'd been cooking with. "You think you're the only one affected by this arrangement? You think I sleep peacefully knowing you're 20 feet away, behind a door I can't open?" My heart hammered. "Alessandro, I think about you constantly." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "I imagine what you're reading, whether you're cold, if you're thinking about me. I listen for your footsteps in the hallway. I track your breathing patterns on the security feeds to make sure you're sleeping well. I'm consumed by you, Aria. Every single day. I should have been terrified, should have been disgusted by the invasion of privacy, the obsessive monitoring, but instead, heat pooled low in my belly. and I hated myself for the way my body responded to his words. "That's not healthy," I whispered. "No," he agreed. "It's not, but it's honest." His fingers traced the line of my jaw, and I shivered. "Which is more than I can say for those divorce papers you filed. What do you mean? You don't want to leave me, Tesoro. You want me to give you a reason to stay." His thumb brushed across my lower lip. "You want me to fight for you, to prove that you're more than a contract, more than a debt repaid. You want to matter." "That's not—" But my protest died as his hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. "Lie to yourself if you need to," he murmured, his mouth inches from mine. "But don't lie to me. Not anymore." He was going to kiss me. After 3 years of distance and careful boundaries, Alessandro was finally going to cross the line we'd both been dancing around since the day we met, and God help me, I wanted him to. His phone buzzed. He closed his eyes briefly, jaw clenching, before stepping back and answering, "What?" Whatever the person on the other end said made his entire body go rigid. "When?" A pause. "Understood. Increase security. No one in or out without my direct authorization." He ended the call and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "We have a problem." "Another one?" My voice came out shakier than I'd intended. The attack wasn't random. He pocketed his phone. It was coordinated with something else. Someone broke into the penthouse tonight while we were gone. They were looking for something specific. "What?" "You." His eyes held mine. "They were looking for information about you. Your background, your family, your connection to me." He moved to the window, staring out at the dark grounds. "Someone knows about the contract, about why I married you." The implications crystallized slowly. My father's information, the names and accounts he gave you, among other things. Alessandro turned back to me. "It seems someone believes you know more than you do, which means they'll come for you again. And next time, they won't care about collateral damage." The food I'd eaten sat heavy in my stomach. "So what now? Now?" He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Now I do what I should have done from the beginning. I make sure everyone knows exactly what you are to me. No more distance, no more separate bedrooms, no more pretending this is just a contract." "What are you saying?" Alessandro crossed back to me, pulling me to my feet. His hands framed my face, forcing me to look at him. "I'm saying the divorce is off, Tesoro. I'm saying you're mine. Really, truly mine, and I'm going to make sure the entire world knows it." His mouth curved into something dangerous. "Starting now." I should have protested, should have pushed him away, demanded my freedom, clung to the divorce papers that were probably still sitting in the bullet-riddled SUV somewhere. Instead, I stood frozen as Alessandro's words sank in, his hands still cradling my face like I was something precious and breakable. "You can't just decide that," I finally managed, but my voice lacked conviction. "I can. I have." He released me, but only to take my hand, leading me out of the kitchen. "Come. You need rest." "Where are we going?" "To bed." My heart stuttered. "Alessandro." "To sleep, Arya." He glanced back at me, something almost amused flickering across his features. "I'm not an animal. When I finally have you, it won't be because you're exhausted and traumatized. It will be because you beg me for it." The arrogance of the statement should have infuriated me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. He led me up the staircase, down a hallway lined with abstract paintings that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. The house was silent except for our footsteps on hardwood and the distant hum of security systems. Guards were posted at intervals. I could feel their presence even when I couldn't see them. Shadows within shadows. Alessandro stopped at a set of double doors, pushing them open to reveal a bedroom that was somehow both opulent and austere. A massive bed dominated the space, dressed in white linens that looked impossibly soft. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, but I noticed they were tinted, bulletproof like everything else in his world. "This is your room," he said. "Mine is next door. There's a connecting door." He gestured to an entrance I hadn't noticed. "But it locks from your side. You have complete control over whether it stays open or closed." I stared at him. You're giving me a choice? I've always given you choices, Tesoro. He moved to a dresser, pulling out what looked like silk pajamas in my size. Of course they were in my size. You just haven't always recognized them as such. That's not true. You've controlled everything. I've protected everything, he corrected, setting the pajamas on the bed. There's a difference. But if you want to see it as control, that's your prerogative. He headed for the door, then paused. Dr. Russo will be here in an hour to examine you. Please don't argue with him. He's insufferable when patients are difficult. I don't need... humor me. It wasn't a request. After that, you should sleep. Tomorrow we deal with whoever thinks they can touch what's mine. He left before I could respond. The door clicking shut with a finality that made me feel suddenly, acutely alone. I sank onto the bed, the events of the day crashing over me like a wave. This morning I'd been so sure. Filed the papers, wait out the 6 months, reclaim my life. Simple. Now I was in a safe house. My father was down the hall, and someone wanted me dead, or worse, wanted to use me to get to Alessandro. And Alessandro himself had just declared ownership of me in a way that should have terrified me, but instead made something hot and dangerous unfurl in my chest. I was so tired of fighting. Tired of pretending I didn't notice the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. Tired of lying awake in my separate bedroom, wondering what would happen if I just walked through his door one night. The divorce papers had been a last-ditch effort to force myself away from something I knew would destroy me. Because loving Alessandro Vittorio De Luca was a death sentence of a different kind, slow and sweet and inevitable. Dr. Russo turned out to be a gruff man in his 60s with kind eyes and gentle hands. He examined me thoroughly, checking the bruise on my shoulder, taking my blood pressure, asking questions about pain and dizziness I didn't have. You're remarkably calm, he observed, packing up his medical bag. Most people who've just been shot at are still shaking. I'm shaking on the inside, I said honestly. He smiled, the expression transforming his stern features. You're good for him, you know, Alessandro. I've known him since he was a boy, never seen him care about anything the way he cares about you. He cares about power, control. He cares about you, Dr. Russo insisted. Why else would he have called me at midnight, demanded I drop everything and come examine you for a bruise? Why else would he have every man in his organization hunting for the people who dared to threaten you? He patted my hand. That boy is terrified of losing you, whether he knows how to say it or not. After he left, I changed into the silk pajamas. They fit perfectly, of course, and climbed into the massive bed. The sheets smelled like lavender and something else. Something that reminded me of Alessandro's cologne. He'd probably had them specially prepared. I should have been angry about the presumption. Instead, I buried my face in the pillow and tried not to think about the fact that a door away, he was probably lying awake too. Sleep came eventually, but it was fractured and full of dreams. Gunshots and cold eyes, and Alessandro's hands on my face, his voice saying mine, mine, mine like a prayer or a curse. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. Alessandro sat in an armchair near the window, fully dressed in another immaculate suit, a laptop balanced on his knee. He looked up when I stirred, something softening in his expression. Good morning. I sat up, suddenly conscious of my sleep-mussed hair and the way the silk clung to my body. How long have you been there? A few hours. He closed the laptop, setting it aside. You talk in your sleep. Heat flooded my cheeks. What did I say? Nothing coherent, but the way he smiled, slow and dangerous, told me I'd said something he'd enjoyed hearing. There's breakfast downstairs. Your father is already up, eating enough for 3 people. I think Maria has adopted him. The normalcy of the statement was jarring. Did you find out who attacked us? The smile vanished. We're working on it. I have people reviewing security footage, tracking the vehicle that escaped. We'll have answers soon. And then what? Then I handle it. He stood, moving to the bed. But that's not your concern. Your concern is staying safe, staying here, and letting me do what I do best, which is eliminating threats. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather instead of violence. Now get dressed. I had clothes brought for you. They're in the closet. Breakfast in 20 minutes. He headed for the door, but I called after him. Alessandro? He turned back. Thank you. For protecting my father. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or pleasure? He's important to you. That makes him important to me. A pause. Even if he is a terrible card player with worse judgment, despite everything, I almost smiled. Breakfast was an surreal affair. My father sat at one end of a long dining table, chatting animatedly with Maria about her grandson's soccer team. Alessandro presided at the head, reviewing documents while sipping espresso, and I sat between them, feeling like I'd stepped into some alternate reality, where we were a normal family having a normal morning, except for the armed guards visible through the windows, and the way Alessandro's phone buzzed constantly with updates I wasn't privy to, and the tension in my father's shoulders that told me he understood exactly how much danger we were in. Mr. DeLuca, my father said suddenly, setting down his fork, I want to apologize for putting Arya in this position, for the debts, the information, all of it. If I'd known, you'd have what? Alessandro didn't look up from his papers. Made different choices? Gambled less? Been a better father? The words were harsh, but his tone was almost conversational. Still, I saw my father flinch. Alessandro, I said quietly. Now he did look up, his eyes meeting mine. Something passed between us. A question, maybe, or a test. Your father made his choices, Alessandro continued, his gaze still locked with mine. Just as I made mine. Just as Arya is making hers. He finally looked at my father. The debts are forgiven. The information you provided has proven valuable. Your daughter has more than paid for your mistakes. But if you ever put her at risk again, if you ever gamble, borrow, or make deals that could come back to touch her, I will not be so forgiving. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. My father nodded, his face pale. Understood. Good. Alessandro stood, gathering his papers. Arya, I need you in my office in an hour. We need to discuss next steps. What next steps? How we're going to make your divorce petition disappear. He said it like it was already decided. And how we're going to convince everyone that our marriage is not only real, but unbreakable. Before I could argue, he was gone, leaving me alone with my father and the weight of what he'd just declared. Arya, my father said quietly, you don't have to do this. If you really want out, I'll find a way. There is no way. I pushed away my plate, appetite gone. You heard him. This isn't about the contract anymore. It's about something else entirely. What? I thought about Alessandro's hands in my hair, his voice saying, "You're mine," with such certainty. I thought about the way he'd covered my body with his own when the shooting started, the way he'd called for a doctor over a simple bruise, the way he'd been sitting in my room this morning like he couldn't bear to be far from me. I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'm going to find out. Alessandro's office was all dark wood and leather, shelves lined with books in Italian and English, business texts, philosophy, literature. A large desk dominated the space, covered in monitors and files. He stood at the window when I entered, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it costs, he was saying in Italian. Find them. Bring them to me. Alive, if possible. A pause. Yes, all of them. I want to know who gave the order. He ended the call and turned to face me. Close the door. I did, my heart hammering. The Alessandro in this room was different from the one at breakfast. Harder, colder, every inch the dangerous man whose name made criminals cross themselves. Sit. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. I sat, hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. He pulled up something on one of his monitors, turning it so I could see security footage from the penthouse, time-stamped from last night. I watched as two figures, masked, dressed in black, moved through our home with terrifying efficiency. They went straight for Alessandro's study, then to my room. They knew the layout, Alessandro said. They knew exactly where to look, which means either someone who's been inside gave them information or they've been watching us for a while. I finished, ice forming in my stomach. Exactly. He pulled up another image, This one of documents spread across my desk in my bedroom, my journals, my sketchbooks, my laptop, open to my email. They photographed everything, every personal detail they could find. Why? Because knowledge is power, Tesoro, and someone wants power over you. He closed the images. Which brings us to our solution, which is... Alessandro came around the desk, perching on the edge directly in front of me. We make you untouchable. We turn you from a liability into an asset so valuable that harming you would start a war no one can afford. How? His eyes held mine. By making our marriage real, by integrating you fully into my world, my business, my life. By ensuring that everyone knows that to touch you is to touch me. You want to use me as bait. I want to make you my partner. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. There's a difference. Is there? I searched his face. Or is this just another way to control me? Maybe. His thumb traced my cheekbone, but it's also the only way to keep you alive. The truth of it settled over me like a heavy blanket. There was no going back now. The moment I'd filed those divorce papers, I'd set something in motion that neither of us could stop. What do I have to do? I asked quietly. Alessandro smiled. Slow, satisfied, dangerous. First, cancel the divorce petition. Second, move your things into my bedroom. Third, his hand slid into my hair. Let me show the world exactly who you belong to. The word belong should have triggered every feminist instinct I possessed. Should have made me pull away, demand respect, insist on my autonomy. Instead, something dark and hungry stirred inside me at the possessiveness in his voice. And what do I get in return? I asked, surprised by the steadiness in my tone. Alessandro's eyes gleamed with approval. Smart girl. Always negotiate. He released me, moving back to his desk. Suddenly all business. Full access to all accounts, personal and business. Your name on everything I own. A seat at the table during meetings. Real power, not just the appearance of it. Why would you give me that? Because if you're going to be my partner, you need the tools to protect yourself. He pulled out a file, sliding it across the desk. This is everything I own. Properties, investments, shell companies, legitimate businesses. It's yours. All of it. I stared at the file like it might bite me. This is insane. This is survival. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. You think I've stayed alive this long by doing things halfway? When I commit to something, I commit completely. And I'm committing to you, Arya, to keeping you safe, to making this marriage into something neither of us can walk away from, even if I want to. Especially if you want to. His smile was sharp, because despite what you filed yesterday, you don't really want to leave. You just want to know that you matter, that you're more than a transaction. I hated that he was right. Fine. I stood, channeling every ounce of courage I possessed. But I have conditions. Of course you do. He gestured for me to continue. No more surveillance in my private spaces. No more tracking my every move. And I took a breath. You tell me the truth. About everything. Your business, your enemies. The real reason someone wants to hurt me. No more protection through ignorance. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming on the desk. When he finally spoke, his voice was measured. The surveillance stays, but I'll limit it to security feeds only. No audio, no personal monitoring. The tracking is non-negotiable until this threat is handled. But the truth? He stood, coming around to face me. The truth might be worse than what you imagine, Tesoro. Try me. He studied my face, then nodded slowly. Your father's information led to the takedown of the Moretti family's money laundering operation. They lost over $200 million. Francesco Moretti, the head of the family, swore vendetta against everyone involved. My blood ran cold. And my father was supposed to die 6 months ago. Car accident, made to look natural. I prevented it. Alessandro's jaw tightened. I've been preventing it every day since. But now they know about you. They know that hurting you hurts me worse than killing your father ever could. So yesterday was the Morettis making their move, testing my defenses, seeing how far they could push. His hand found my chin, tilting my face up, and they discovered something I've tried very hard to hide, that you're not just a contract wife. You're my weakness. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. Then maybe we should get divorced, I whispered. Maybe that would keep me safe. You think they'd believe it? His laugh was bitter. After 3 years? After the way I've guarded you, they'd assume it was a trick, and they'd be right. There's no walking away from this, Arya. Not for either of us. So I'm trapped. We both are. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. The question is whether we're going to fight each other while we're trapped, or whether we're going to fight them together. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something dark crossed his features. They found one of the shooters, and he's being delivered here, now. Alessandro's eyes met mine. I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. What? Do you want to know what I do to people who threaten what's mine? The question was a test. I understood that instinctively. He was offering me a glimpse behind the curtain, a chance to see the monster everyone else saw when they looked at him. I should have said no. Should have maintained the comfortable fiction that I could love him without accepting all of him. Yes, I heard myself say. Show me. Something fierce and approving flashed in his eyes. Then come with me. But Arya. He caught my wrist, his grip gentle but firm. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. Once you know exactly what I'm capable of, there's no going back to the illusion. I don't want the illusion anymore. The truth of it surprised me. I want reality. All of it. He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded. Stay close to me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And if at any point it becomes too much, you leave. Understood? Understood. Alessandro led me down into the basement, a space I hadn't known existed. The temperature dropped with each step, and the polished elegance of the upper floors gave way to concrete and steel. We passed through 3 security doors, each requiring both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. The room at the end of the hall was sparse. A single chair sat in the center, bolted to the floor. Drains were positioned at intervals in the concrete. The walls were bare except for a cabinet I didn't want to examine too closely. 2 of Alessandro's men stood guard, and between them, tied to the chair, face bloody and swelling, was a man I didn't recognize. Boss? Luca appeared from the shadows. He's been resistant, but I think he'll talk now. Alessandro nodded, shrugging out of his suit jacket and handing it to me without a word. He rolled up his sleeves with methodical precision, and I noticed for the first time the scars on his forearms weren't just faded, they were deliberate, patterned. Someone had cut him repeatedly, in the same places, over and over. Mr. Ricci, Alessandro said conversationally, approaching the bound man. Thank you for joining us. Fuck you, the man spat, blood dripping from his split lip. Creative. Alessandro pulled up a second chair, sitting down with casual grace. Let's start simple. Who hired you? I don't know what you're talking about. Alessandro's fist shot out so fast I barely saw it move. The crack of impact echoed off the concrete walls. The man's head snapped back, more blood spattering the floor. Let's try again, Alessandro said, his voice never rising. Who hired you to shoot at my vehicle yesterday? You're going to kill me anyway, true? Alessandro stood, moving to the cabinet. When he turned back, he held a knife. Simple, utilitarian, terrifying in its plainness. But there are many ways to die, Mr. Ricci. Some are quick. Others, he let the sentence hang, take considerably longer. I should have been horrified, should have run from the room, from this man, from the casual violence unfolding in front of me. But I couldn't move, couldn't look away from Alessandro's face. Calm, controlled, absolutely devoid of mercy. This was the man who had killed for me, would kill for me again, would burn the world down if it meant keeping me safe. And God help me, some twisted part of me found that intoxicating. The Morettis! The man finally gasped. Francesco Moretti himself gave the order. Good. Alessandro set the knife down. And the break-in at my penthouse? Same employer? Yes. He wanted information on your wife, her routines, her connections, anything that could be used. Used how? The man hesitated, and Alessandro picked up the knife again. Leverage. The man practically screamed it. He's planning something bigger. An exchange. Your wife for something he wants. What does he want? The drives. The ones her father handed over. He thinks you still have copies, thinks you're holding them over him. Alessandro went very still. And does he plan to return her alive after this exchange? Silence. Answer the question, Mr. Ricci. No, the man whispered. He plans to send her back in pieces. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Alessandro's hand tightened on the knife, his knuckles going white. When he spoke, his voice was soft, barely above a whisper, and more terrifying than any shout could have been. Thank you for your honesty. He turned to Luca. Make it quick, he cooperated. Boss? Luca nodded. Alessandro crossed back to me, taking his jacket and shrugging it back on. His hands were steady as he buttoned it, but I saw the fury in his eyes, barely contained. Come, he said quietly. I followed him out, back through the security doors, up the stairs. We didn't speak until we were in his office again. Door closed, the sounds of the basement far behind us. Now you know, he said, moving to pour himself a drink. That's what I am, what I do. I crossed to him, taking the glass from his hand and setting it down. His eyes widened slightly as I placed my palms flat against his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath the expensive fabric. You protected me, I said quietly. That man would have killed me without a second thought. And you're going to make sure Francesco Moretti can't hurt my father or me or anyone else you care about. That doesn't make it right. I'm not asking about right. I looked up at him. I'm asking if you'll keep me safe. If you'll do whatever it takes. Yes. No hesitation. Always. Then show me. The words came out breathless. Show me that I'm yours. Make it real, Alessandro. All of it. His control snapped. One moment I was standing. The next I was pressed against his desk. Alessandro's mouth on mine with a hunger that 3 years of restraint had only sharpened. His hands were in my hair, on my waist, pulling me closer like he could merge us into one person. I kissed him back with equal desperation, tasting whiskey and danger and something darker. My fingers fumbled with his tie, loosening it, needing less barriers between us. Aria, he groaned against my mouth. If we do this, then we do this. I bit his lower lip, gratified when he growled. No more separate rooms. No more distance. You want me to be yours? Then take me. Claim me. Make it so real that there's no doubt in anyone's mind, including mine. He pulled back, his eyes searching mine. You understand what you're agreeing to. This isn't just sex, Tesoro. This is surrender. Complete and total. Only if it goes both ways. I held his gaze. You want me to surrender to you? Then you surrender to me too. No more walls. No more secrets. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. For a long moment, I thought he might refuse, might pull away and rebuild the careful distance we'd maintained for 3 years. Instead, he lifted me onto his desk, scattering papers, stepping between my thighs. His forehead rested against mine, our breathing ragged and synchronized. You're going to ruin me, he whispered. Good. I pulled him closer. You've been ruining me since the day we met. His phone buzzed. Insistent, urgent. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Alessandro. Let it ring. His mouth found my throat, teeth grazing the sensitive skin there. The world can wait. But the phone kept buzzing, and eventually, reluctantly, he pulled back far enough to glance at it. Whatever he saw made him curse in Italian. What is it? Moretti. He showed me the screen, a text message with a photo attached. My father, unconscious or worse, tied to a chair similar to the one we'd just left downstairs. He has your father. The world tilted. But he was here. He was at breakfast. That was 2 hours ago. Alessandro was already moving, grabbing his jacket, checking his weapon. They must have taken him when we were in the basement. Fuck. He pulled up his phone, calling someone. Luca, we have a breach. I want every man we have searching the perimeter, now. He turned to me, his face a mask of controlled fury. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me. I'm coming with you. No. His hand cupped my face. I need to know you're safe. Please, Arya. For once, just do what I ask without argument. The fear in his eyes, real, raw fear, made me nod. He kissed me once more, hard and possessive, then was gone. And I was left alone in his office, my lips swollen from his kiss, my father in the hands of a man who wanted to send me back in pieces, and the terrible knowledge that I'd just surrendered myself completely to a man who might not be able to protect me after all. The minutes crawled by like hours. I paced Alessandro's office, my mind spiraling through every terrible possibility. My father's face in that photo. Pale, bruised, unconscious. How had they gotten to him? How had they breached Alessandro's security? My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I stared at it, hand shaking, knowing I shouldn't answer but unable to stop myself. Hello? Mrs. DeLuca. The voice was smooth, cultured, with a slight Italian accent. Or should I say, soon-to-be ex-Mrs. DeLuca. I understand you filed for divorce. Who is this? Francesco Moretti. I believe we have a mutual problem. Your husband has something that belongs to me, and I have something that belongs to you. Ice flooded my veins. If you hurt my father, then you'll what? He laughed softly. You have no power here, little bird. But I'm a reasonable man. I'm willing to make an exchange. The drives your father stole from me, delivered by you personally, and I'll return your father alive. Alessandro will never agree. Then I suppose your father dies. His tone remained conversational. You have 2 hours. Come alone to the old shipping warehouse on Pier 17. Bring the drives. If I see any of DeLuca's men, your father's death will be on your conscience. He paused. Oh, and Mrs. DeLuca, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Alessandro has kept you hidden for so long. I'm curious to see what makes you worth starting a war over. The line went dead. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone. 2 hours. Pier 17. Come alone. Everything in me screamed to wait for Alessandro, to tell him, to let him handle this. But the memory of that photo, my father's battered face, made the decision for me. I moved quickly, searching Alessandro's desk until I found what I was looking for, a key to his safe, tucked in the back of a drawer. Inside the safe, among stacks of cash and documents I didn't have time to examine, were 3 external hard drives, each labeled with dates and codes I didn't understand. These had to be what Moretti wanted. The copies of the information my father had provided. I grabbed them, shoving them in my purse along with my phone. Then I hesitated, looking at the handgun also in the safe. I'd never fired a weapon in my life, but the weight of it felt like insurance I couldn't afford to pass up. Getting out of the house was harder. Guards were posted everywhere, and I had no doubt Alessandro had ordered them to keep me inside. But I'd spent 3 years being underestimated, being seen as decorative rather than dangerous. I waited until the guard outside Alessandro's office stepped away to speak into his radio, then slipped out, moving quickly through the halls. I knew there was a service entrance near the kitchen. Maria had mentioned it when showing my father around. The kitchen was empty. I grabbed a coat from the hook by the door and slipped outside into the cold afternoon air. No alarms sounded. No shouts followed me. I made it to the perimeter fence and found a section hidden by overgrown bushes. The fence was high, topped with wire, but my desperation made me stronger than I knew. I climbed, ignoring the way the metal cut into my palms, ignoring the tear in my clothes. I dropped to the other side, landing hard, my ankle twisting painfully, but I pushed through it, limping toward the road I could see through the trees. A cab was passing, a miracle. I flagged it down, breathless. Pier 17, I gasped. Please, it's an emergency. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, took one look at my torn clothes and bleeding hands and nodded. Get in. The drive took 45 minutes through traffic that made me want to scream. My phone buzzed constantly. Alessandro calling, texting, calling again. I turned it off, unable to bear the guilt of ignoring him, but knowing that if I answered, he'd track me and my father would die. Pier 17 was in the old industrial district, long abandoned. Rusted shipping containers created a maze of metal, and the smell of salt water mixed with decay hung heavy in the air. The sun was setting, casting everything in shades of orange and shadow. I paid the driver with cash from my purse and stepped out, my ankle throbbing with each step. "You sure about this, miss?" the driver asked, concerned. "This ain't a safe area." "I'm sure. Thank you." He drove away reluctantly, and I was alone. The warehouse loomed ahead, a massive structure with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. The door was open, an invitation, or a trap, probably both. I stepped inside, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. The space was cavernous, empty except for old equipment and debris. Footsteps echoed from deeper within. "Mrs. DeLuca." Francesco Moretti emerged from the shadows, and I understood immediately why he commanded fear. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 50, with silver-threaded hair and the kind of face that would be handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. Two men flanked him, both armed, and behind them, tied to a chair, was my father. Alive, conscious, his eyes widening when he saw me. "Arya, no!" he shouted. "Get out of here!" One of the guards hit him, and I flinched. "That's enough," Moretti said mildly. "The girl came as instructed. Let's be civilized." He turned to me. "Do you have what I asked for?" I pulled the drives from my purse, holding them up. "Let him go first." "I don't think so." Moretti smiled. "You give me the drives, I verify they're authentic, then you both go free." "You're lying." "Perhaps." He shrugged. "But what choice do you have?" He was right. I had no leverage, no backup, no plan beyond getting my father out alive. I stepped forward, extending the drives. Moretti reached for them. The warehouse exploded with light and sound. Alessandro's men poured in from every entrance, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. Moretti's guards tried to react, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered within seconds. And then Alessandro himself appeared, striding through the chaos like an avenging angel. His gun was drawn, his face a mask of cold fury I'd never seen before. "You made a mistake, Francesco." His voice carried across the warehouse. "You touched what's mine, DeLuca." Moretti's composure cracked slightly. "This is a private matter. You kidnapped my father-in-law. You threatened my wife. You tried to use her against me. Alessandro's gun never wavered. That stops being private the moment you drew her into this." I stood frozen, the drive still clutched in my hand, as Alessandro's men secured the area. Luca appeared beside me, gently taking the drives and guiding me toward my father. "Are you hurt?" my father whispered as I worked on his bindings. "I'm fine. Are you?" "I've been better." His hands were shaking. "Arya, you shouldn't have come." "Of course I came." The ropes fell away, and I helped him stand. "You're my father." Alessandro and Moretti were still facing off, the tension between them thick enough to cut. "The drives were supposed to be destroyed," Moretti said. "You promised." "I promised nothing." Alessandro's smile was sharp. "And now you've given me exactly what I needed. Proof of your family's involvement in trafficking, money laundering, and attempted murder. All captured on the recording devices my wife was wearing. My hand flew to the necklace I'd put on this morning. A gift from Alessandro I'd thought was just jewelry. Of course it wasn't. Moretti's face went white. "You set me up." "You set yourself up." Alessandro finally lowered his gun, but only because Luca had moved into position behind Moretti. "You made this personal when you threatened her. Now it ends. Your family's operation is finished. Your assets are frozen." "And you," his voice dropped to something deadly, "are going to disappear." "You can't." "I can. I have. It's already done." Alessandro finally looked at me, and the fury in his eyes softened into something else. "Guards, take Mr. Moretti and his men into custody. The police will be here in 10 minutes to collect them." "Police?" I whispered to Luca. "Boss made a deal," Luca murmured. "Information on Moretti's operation in exchange for immunity. Everything's legal. Mostly." Alessandro crossed to me, his hands immediately checking me for injuries. His fingers found the cuts on my palms from the fence, the torn fabric of my clothes, and his jaw clenched. "You left the safe house. I had to. You could have been killed." His voice was rough. "Do you understand that? If Moretti had decided to shoot you the moment you walked in, if this had gone wrong, if—" I kissed him. Cut off his words with my mouth on his, pouring 3 years of fear and frustration and desperate, foolish love into it. He kissed me back hard, his arms crushing me against him. "Don't ever do that again," he said against my lips. "Don't ever risk yourself like that." My father, I would have gotten him back. I had a plan. I always have a plan. He pulled back enough to look at me, his hands framing my face. "But you... God, Arya, you terrify me. You make me weak. You make me care about things beyond power and control and survival." "Is that so bad?" "It's everything." His thumb brushed away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. "I was wrong. In the beginning, when I married you, I told myself it was about an heir, about strategy. But the truth is, I saw your picture, and I knew. I knew you'd be the thing that either saved me or destroyed me. And which is it?" "Both." He smiled, and it was real, warm, transforming his face into something
"You're both,
almost
Tesoro.
young. And I wouldn't have it any other way." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "We need to go," Luca said quietly, "before the police arrive and start asking uncomfortable questions." Alessandro nodded, keeping one arm around me as we moved toward the exit. My father walked beside us, supported by one of the guards. "What happens now?" I asked as we emerged into the cool evening air. The sun had fully set, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "Now?" Alessandro guided me toward one of the waiting SUVs. "Now Moretti goes to prison for a very long time. His family's empire crumbles, and you..." He helped me into the vehicle, sliding in beside me. "You move into my bedroom like we agreed. No more separate spaces. No more walls between us. And the divorce papers? Withdrawn. Destroyed. Never mentioned again." His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. "You're stuck with me, Mrs. DeLuca. For better or worse. Probably more worse than better, considering my occupation. I can live with that." I leaned my head against his shoulder, suddenly exhausted. "As long as you promise something." "What?" "No more secrets. No more protection through ignorance. If I'm your partner, then I need to know everything. The good, the bad, and the terrifying." He was quiet for a moment, then pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "Deal. Though I reserve the right to occasionally withhold information if it's to plan a surprise birthday party or anniversary celebration." Despite everything, the fear, the violence, the danger, I laughed. "You're going to plan anniversary celebrations? I'm going to try." His arms tightened around me. "I'm going to try to be the husband you deserve, Arya. I'll probably fail more often than I succeed, but I'm going to try. That's all I ask." The drive back to the safe house was quiet. My father dozing in the front seat, Alessandro holding me like he was afraid I might disappear. When we finally arrived, Maria fussed over both my father and me, insisting on feeding us despite the late hour. Dr. Russo returned to check my injuries. The cuts on my hands, the twisted ankle, the bruises that were already forming. Alessandro watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. "She's resilient," Dr. Russo observed, bandaging my palms. "Tougher than she looks." "I know." Alessandro's voice was soft. "I've always known." Later, after my father was settled in his room and the house had finally quieted, Alessandro led me to his bedroom, the one adjoining mine through that connecting door I'd never had the courage to open. It was similar to mine, but somehow more personal. Books stacked on the nightstand, a photo on the dresser of a woman who must have been his mother, his reading glasses left carelessly on a chair. "This is me," he said quietly. "The real me. Not the boss, not the businessman. Just Alessandro." I crossed to the photo, studying the woman's face. She had his eyes, his sharp intelligence. "Tell me about her." "She was fierce, protective. She ran the household while my father ran the business, but everyone knew she was the real power. He came to stand beside me. She would have liked you, would have appreciated your strength." "When did she die?" 10 years ago. Cancer. She fought it for 2 years, never complained once." His jaw tightened. "My father followed her 6 months later, couldn't live without her." "Is that what you meant when you said obsession runs in your family?" "Maybe." He turned me to face him, his hands gentle on my bandaged palms. "Or maybe I just recognized in you what my father saw in my mother, someone worth building a life around, someone worth dying for. I'd rather you lived for me, that too. He smiled, then sobered. I need you to understand something. What we did tonight, what we're doing, it's not without consequences. Moretti's arrest will create a power vacuum. Other families will move to fill it. Things might get dangerous again before they get better. I know. And you're still willing to stay? I thought about the divorce papers, about my desperate bid for freedom. I thought about the past 3 years of careful distance and loneliness. And I thought about Alessandro's arms around me during the shooting, his fury when my father was taken. The way he'd said "you're mine" like it was both a threat and a promise. I'm still willing to stay, I said. But on one condition. Name it. You let me in. Completely. Your business, your decisions, your world. If I'm going to be your partner, then I need to be your actual partner. Not just someone you protect, but someone who stands beside you. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. It won't be easy. Some of my associates won't accept a woman at the table, then they'll learn. I held his gaze. Or they'll find themselves on the wrong side of both of us. His smile was slow, dangerous, proud. You're going to be magnificent at this. I know. I reached up, pulling him down for a kiss that tasted like promises and new beginnings. Now take me to bed, husband. We have 3 years to make up for. Yes, ma'am. He lifted me easily, carrying me to the bed despite my protest that my ankle was fine. But Arya, we're doing this my way. Slow. Thorough. Until you understand exactly what it means to be mine. Heat flooded through me. Is that a threat? It's a guarantee. He set me down on the bed, his eyes dark with promise. By morning you won't remember why you ever wanted to leave. And as he proved his point through the long hours of the night, with hands that knew exactly how to make me surrender, with words that stripped away every defense I'd built, with a possession that was somehow also reverence, I realized he was right. I'd never wanted to leave. I'd only wanted to matter. And now, tangled in his sheets with dawn breaking through the windows, his heart beating steady beneath my ear, I finally did. 3 months later, I sat at Alessandro's right hand during a meeting with the heads of the 5 families. My father, sober now, attending GA meetings twice a week, sat across from us, serving as an advisor. The divorce papers were ash in Alessandro's fireplace. My name was on every document that mattered. And when Francesco Moretti's former associates tried to question a woman's presence at the table, Alessandro simply said, "She's my wife. She's my partner. And she's smarter than half of you combined. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave." No one left. That night, back in the penthouse we'd returned to once the threat was neutralized, Alessandro found me in his study, our study now, reviewing acquisition reports. Working late? He came up behind my chair, his hands settling on my shoulders. Someone has to keep your business running smoothly. I tilted my head back to look at him. Besides, I found something interesting in the Port Authority contracts. Oh? A loophole we can exploit. Could save us millions and put us in position to control shipping routes from 3 additional territories. His hands tightened on my shoulders. Have I told you lately that you're brilliant? Not in the last hour. I was starting to feel neglected. He laughed. A sound I'd learned to coax from him more frequently. Then he pulled me to my feet, his arms encircling my waist. Come to bed, Tesoro. The contracts can wait until morning. Can they? I traced the line of his jaw. I thought you wanted me to be a full partner. I do. But I also want my wife in my bed, where she belongs. His eyes gleamed. I'm allowed to be possessive occasionally. Occasionally? I raised an eyebrow. Alessandro, you have guards follow me to the gallery. You review the security feeds daily. You personally vet every person I meet. That's not occasional possessiveness. That's a lifestyle choice. And you love it. He wasn't wrong. Admit it, Arya. You love knowing I can't stand the idea of anyone else even looking at you. You love that I'm obsessed with keeping you safe. You love that I need you. Maybe. I pulled him down for a kiss, but only because you need me as much as I need you. We're equally obsessed, equally possessive, equally ruined for anyone else. Good. He lifted me, carrying me toward our bedroom, the space we shared now, the connecting door removed entirely. Because I plan to keep you ruined for the rest of our lives. And as he proved that point once again, I thought about the girl I'd been 3 months ago. The one who'd filed for divorce thinking freedom was distance, thinking safety meant escape. She'd been wrong. Freedom was choosing to stay. Safety was being with someone who'd burn the world down before letting you get hurt. And love, real, terrifying, all-consuming love, was surrendering completely while knowing the other person had surrendered just as much. I'd tried to end our marriage contract, but Alessandro's jealousy, his possessiveness, his absolute refusal to let me go, had given me something better. A real marriage, a true partnership. A love story written in danger and devotion, and the kind of obsession that poets wrote about and psychologists warned against. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it. "I love you," I whispered against his skin. He stilled, pulling back to look at me. I'd never said it before. Neither had he. The words had felt too small, too insufficient for what burned between us. "Say it again," he commanded softly. "I love you, Alessandro Vittorio De Luca. I love you obsessively, possessively, completely." His smile was devastating. Good. Because I've loved you since the moment you walked into my office 3 years ago and negotiated your own terms. I've loved you every day since, even when you were trying to leave me. He kissed me deeply, thoroughly. And I'll love you until the day I die. Probably longer, since I'm too stubborn to let death separate us. That's the most romantic threat anyone's ever made me. I'm a romantic at heart. His hands traced patterns on my skin. A possessive, jealous, obsessive romantic who finally has exactly what he wants. And what's that? You. Forever. Mine. Ours, I corrected. We belong to each other, remember? Ours, he agreed. Forever. And wrapped in his arms, surrounded by the life we'd built from ashes and contracts and desperate bargains, I finally understood what it meant to be truly free. Not freedom from him, freedom with him. And that made all the difference.